What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to episode number 254 of the VK Bros with Jason and Alex Von Cannell. Starting a little bit earlier on a Friday morning today, a beautifully crisp Friday morning, I might add, as Queensland and many areas around Australia experience their coldest winter night in like 30 or 40 years, or whatever the headlines were. Did you see that by any chance?
It's cold.
It is cold.
I don't know if it's the coldest. It's cold. But I would also argue that it's been warm up to this point.
Yeah. So the climate has changed almost seemingly overnight. So I'm actually repping my new Bush Rats jerseys. Check that out. Shout out to the Bush Rats, the local Tambury Mountain Rugby League team. Finally got my hoodie that I ordered a little while ago, and I love it. I'm stoked.
It's nice of you to rep someone. I'm wearing a blank thing, as all my clothes are. I don't like repping anyone that's not my business.
Yep, that's totally fair enough. Big show again this week, guys. We're going to be discussing a couple of things. Probably the biggest story of the week is going to be what RFK Jr. has just done with the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunisation Practices, or ACIP as they are referred to. So that's a pretty big story, lots to talk about. We'll also probably cover a couple of left-wing shows got cancelled all of a sudden this week, one day after the other. Obviously, we've lost Q&A and the project in 1 week. How will we cope? How will we cope?
Oh, no.
But I think there's some interesting things to discuss there. I'm sure you've got something you want to start the show with, but can I start with a personal story?
Yes.
Okay. So last Sunday morning, my wife and I took the boys to a kid's birthday party at Inflatable World, which is just down the road. And as the name suggests, Inflatable World is a kids' play center, and it's full of like jumping castles and just various inflatable play.
Oh, I thought you were just talking about our financial system.
Yeah. Oh, that's a bit sad, isn't it? Anyway, it's like full of jumping castles and a whole bunch of different obstacle courses and stuff. Kids are loving it. Like, had a really, really good time. And I was catching up with one of the so it was the person whose birthday it was someone that Nate went to kindy with, but now they've gone to different schools. So we don't see that family much anymore. Really cool people. And there was another old kindy family that we were catching up with as well. And anyway, I was talking to one of the dads, and he's cool, and we're just having a bit of a chat. And he's a firefighter now. So what we were talking about was liability, because there was that big inflatable bouncing castle accident. I think it was in Tasmania. That like flew away, and a bunch of kids died. And anyway, that's just gone through court, and apparently the operator has gotten away with like no liability. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about it because obviously he's a firefighter and he runs into burning buildings all the time, and so assessing risk is a big factor. And we start talking about who would have liability at Inflatable World if, say one of the things deflated, bunch of kids, and it suffocates a kid. And we're like, oh, well, it's probably depending on, if you can prove that it was negligence on behalf of the company, like maybe the maintenance wasn't upkept on it and that's why it failed or whatever, then it'll probably be the company. But if it's just a kid like doing something dumb, jumping off the side of it, hurting themselves, that's why you sign a waiver. Like, we're just talking about that. Anyway, as we're chatting, over in the far corner, one of the jumping castles starts deflating. And we're like, wonder what's gone on with that. Like, it's a bit strange, but, whatever. Like, maybe they deflate some if there's not enough kids, or I don't know. So it starts deflating. And then we keep chatting, and like 30 seconds later, so there's like two sections. There's like one side, and then there's like a row down the middle, and then there's another side. So there's like two large sections. And the next thing you know, one in the other section starts deflating as well. And we're like, okay, this is getting weird now. Like, what's going on? So he's actually gone in to look for his daughter, and his daughter was actually inside one of the ones that was deflating at the time. So he's like gone in to help pull these kids out. Anyway, didn't really think too much of it. Like, probably less than a minute later, my son Jake is screaming. Like, I can hear him. And like, as a parent, and shout out to all the parents out there, you'll know it's when it's your own kid that's like screaming and crying, because you just know the sound. So he's like screaming, and he goes, "Daddy!" And he's like running up to me, like bawling his eyes out. And I'm thinking, and I said, "Oh, like, what's wrong, mate?" Like, thinking that maybe he was in one of these jumping castles or whatever. Anyway, one of the staff members storming up behind him going, "Your son keeps turning off the fans for all of the jumping castles. He needs to cut it out." And I just started cracking up laughing. And I think me laughing has upset the worker even more.
Totally.
So my
should.
absolute menace of a son had obviously figured out how to turn the switches for the fans off, realised the power that it wielded the first time, did it again, and then was caught trying to do it again on another one. So my son's a terrorist.
Now, I have to say, I hate that conversation that you had with that guy. I hate it.
Why?
Liability. You're playing, like, it's your job as a human being to understand the risks associated with it. You can't, and you shouldn't have to sign away, like, common sense.
Well, but we were talking about it from that perspective, right? So, like, one of the things that I mentioned, because I used to work at a place called Mount Tamborine Adventure Park, massive high ropes course, huge risk involved in that. Like, we had people fall off the course from like 5 meters up and that sort of thing, because you had these carabiners that you had to have one attached at all time. People would forget, not follow the rules, get tired, fall off. Happened every now and then. And like every time you had an accident, our insurance premiums went through the roof, to the point where the company was basically not even viable anymore. But I was talking about I love the New Zealand model. I subscribe to the New Zealand model. Do you know what the New Zealand model is? If you take part in some sort of dangerous adrenaline-based activity and you hurt yourself, you cannot sue the operator.
Good. Yeah, totally.
You can sue the government, and if you can prove that there was some, maybe there was some negligence or something by the operator, the government will actually pay you, not the operator. So the operators... What's that, sorry?
I don't like that either.
I get it. I don't like that either, because I'm a big personal responsibility guy. Like, if you choose to do something which is dangerous, guess what? You chose to do the dangerous thing. So
that's what makes it appealing.
Yeah.
Is the danger. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. Like, if you walk through a state forest and a branch falls down and injures you, you haven't signed any waiver there.
Yeah.
So if you got, do you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to sue?
Yeah, it's natural law, right? Like, if you walk through a national park and a snake bites you, you can't sue the ranger.
Yeah, I just, the fact that we are so locked in, and it reminds me, there are real life ramifications for society. So, for example, it's ridiculous that Australia has to paint corners of floors a colour so that people don't trip.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, how about you use your face and look at the thing and go, well, maybe I shouldn't step there. But it changes the way that we think about risk here.
It changes the mentality, for sure.
It's not my responsibility to mitigate the risk. It's your responsibility as a person providing this risky thing. I hate it.
Yeah, I hate it too. I much prefer... that's the reason why all the adrenaline sports are in New Zealand. Because it's the only Western country that you can actually operate them without having this ridiculous risk burden.
Well, America, although America sounds really litigious, so I do a lot of car-related extreme sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and when I went and did a race day in Vegas in supercars,
yep.
They're like, okay, there's a classroom first. And I thought, oh, here we go. Because when you do one here in Australia, it's, if you do this or if you do that, you're going to get kicked off straight away, and you're going to be responsible for this, and you're going to be responsible for that. And don't let us catch you. And it's really negative. Over there, it's like, guys, if you want to go really, really fast, listen to us. Like, we're going to get you. Like, the objective is for you to have fun.
Education.
And to have fun safely. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. Right? And it's all about it. So it's the same information, but in a far more positive spin.
Yep.
And you don't need to jump through these crazy hurdles and sign these dumb forms that no one reads.
Yeah. And they're not worth the paper they're printed on anyway.
Exactly. So why? It's pantomime. So let's not do the pantomime.
Yep.
Let's realize I'm going to jump off a platform and be held by a fucking elastic band. Let's realize there is dangers associated with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, I shared a meme on the VK Bros Instagram page the other day, and it's that thing of like, government brings in program to wipe certain people's asses. 5 years later, everyone, without government, who's going to wipe our asses? Like, it's literally how that mentality changes in you.
Totally. Now, I have a little anecdote too.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm currently driving a 2015 Tesla Model S.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not an electric car guy. I spoke about on this show that I had borrowed one of the new Toyota ones, and I gave my review on that.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to give a really quick 45-second review on the Tesla. Tesla drives much better,
Right.
much quieter, smoother, faster. Even though this is an old thing, they've done a lot of things right, and they do some little quirky things really, really good. So, for example, my driveway is a little bit steep. It's got like a sharp uprise and a sharp downrise. So low cars that are long with long wheelbases tend to scrape the middle. My Ferrari used to scrape the
What a
the
flex. What a flex. Oh, my Ferrari used to scrape.
Gotta do it. Flex when you can flex. And this car did it too. But you can adjust. It's got air suspension, so you can click on the screen and you can raise the suspension up. And then I noticed geofencing enabled. So what it's done is now it knows that when I approach that space, it lifts up automatically. So I don't have to do it anymore.
Oh,
as soon as I drive away from it, it drops. So that's cool. Here's another little thing. I've shown everyone my absolute disdain for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Mm-hmm. Like, those systems are just so dog shit. And everyone goes, oh, no, I've never had any problems. You've had heaps of problems. You just forgot and you don't know how to identify them, like I do, right?
I think Android Auto is terrible, but Apple CarPlay is pretty consistent. Just because of different operating systems that are used.
Apple CarPlay calls me. So I get maybe 3 phone calls. So let's call it a call and a half every day from someone talking to their Apple CarPlay saying, call my friend Jennifer, and it calls me. It goes dialing 0407 da 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 da.
Well,
it happens all the time.
You see, Alex,
and then
anecdotally, that's never happened to me. Therefore, you must be lying.
Right. We'll get to that.
There is no evidence which proves your claims.
Yeah.
Show me a study. I want a peer-reviewed study on Apple CarPlay that shows that it happens, Alex.
What Tesla
the gold standard
is you log in to YouTube Music through the car, and therefore it's connected all the time. So you have a native app running inside the car.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's just a great system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the downside is the battery life is, I don't think it's sustainable. I connected it for 12 hours in the wall plug. Cheeky me, not the wall plug associated with my unit, but the one next to it in this dark storeroom that has no light. So maybe Body Corporate's going to get a little billsy.
Mm-hmm.
12 hours got me 30% battery charge.
That's insane.
And then I used 10% of that to go to the gym and back, which was essentially 25 minutes of driving.
Holy crap. That's, how old's that Tesla? Like, could the battery have degraded?
Well, the battery report is very good. Like, it's, I think it's actually had a battery replacement in its life before.
Oh, wow. That's still
it's not a battery issue. It's life of a... And I remember when I was talking to the guy at Toyota, I was saying, surely you can just build into your regimen that it's like your phone. When you get home, connect it up, leave it overnight, and you'll be good. And he said with the new car, he's like, no, you have to implement some level of supercharging to live with it. It sucks, dude. If this is how it is, and I was even like nervous. I went out for dinner last night, but I was like, a small part of me was like, I've only got 28% charge. Maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah, wow.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, and you know what's even more ironic too is, like, all of our listeners know about how our government has done this massive push towards electric cars in the last 3 years, and look what the price of fuel is doing compared to the price of electricity. The price of fuel's come down quite considerably, and cost of electricity is going through the roof. I just got the our group chat. Our mate sent us the notification he just got from Origin about the price increases for power coming. I just got the same thing as well. So price going up, rebates going away too.
My business account. When I was I moved shops and I was getting the business account sorted, and they said, oh, is it okay if we now price you monthly because we don't do them quarterly anymore? And the monthly figure is very close to the quarterly figure it used to be.
I mean, that's why they do it monthly, because...
They want you to think logically, like, it's the same.
It's a smaller number.
Well, yeah. It's very cheeky. Very sneaky. Now, the other thing I want to say about Tesla, which this is anecdotal too, I'm nauseous right now, and I wonder if it's from the car, because I know that they've done like the amount of EMF that they put out is huge. Essentially, just a big, massive battery that pumps out heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of EMF. And I'm wondering if it's that. So I will test myself over the weekend and see how sick I can make myself.
It's turning you gay. The EMF is turning you gay.
Yeah, I met this cute guy. We really hit it off.
Hey, in a cost of living crisis, if you're going to choose to shack up with a boy or a girl, take the extra 30% income.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
All right, let's start with what RFK did this week. So I want to give a bit of a precursor to this because the big story came out over a series of days. The first big announcement was I found out about it from a bunch of far lefties on X shrieking about the fact that he had just fired all 17 members of the Advisory Committee for Immunisation Practices. So what that committee is, they're attached to the CDC, the Centers of Disease Control, and the FDA. And essentially that committee is supposed to be a group of experts that get together whenever a new vaccine is supposed to be coming out or approved, or they want to make changes to the childhood vaccination schedule, for example. And because they're all the experts, they get into a room, they all vote on all of these proposed changes, and then that is like the expert guidance that is then handed over to the CDC or the FDA when it comes to actually making these recommendations into law, essentially. So obviously you hear all the lefties shrieking about how noted anti-vaxxer RFK has gone ahead and fired all 17 members of the ACIP.
Just a quick pause.
Yep.
That's exactly how it was raised to me. The way you said it, so live, someone came up to me and said exactly what you said.
Right.
Exactly the way that you said it.
Okay. Well, it's quite funny because for people who don't know this, Alex and I don't discuss these things before the show.
Yeah.
So
and that's on purpose. We do this on purpose.
Yeah, because
like,
we want live reactions.
Sometimes we start saying, like we've had the conversation this morning, you going into something and like, stop. Like, let's talk about it on the show.
Yeah, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then it was, I think, a day or two later that he announced he'd replaced all 17 members with a new 8-member panel. And there's some interesting figures on that, the new panel, which we will go through. But I just want to start out first with the clip I sent you of I think it's a 2017 or 2018 clip of this committee meeting about recommendations for a vaccine. Because the thing I want to start off with is addressing the reasons why those 17 people got fired in the first place. Because that'll hope...
February 2018?
Yeah, I think that might be it. So hopefully this goes... Oh, okay, yeah, this is the clip. So just pause it for a second. So can you just scroll up to the top? Because this has a bit of an explainer of what this actually is. Okay. So it says, this is why RFK Jr. retired every member of ACIP. This clip from a 2018 ACIP meeting illustrates exactly why ACIP reform is necessary. So just go back down to the video, because that's just a transcript of the video itself, and play the video, please.
Is there any comment on using this vaccine at the same time with other adjuvanted vaccines?
We have no data to make a recommendation one way or the other.
Can you pause it? Okay, so just
what is that?
For a start, I don't know what that thing is behind the podium. But just to explain it as we go. So the question is asked, do we have any comment on the use of this vaccine with any other adjuvanted vaccine? What that means is, have they done any testing where a child has taken this new vaccine alongside the existing vaccines with adjuvants in them? So what is an adjuvant? An adjuvant is something where they used to use mercury. That was one of the things that RFK Jr. got out in the first place many years ago. They used small amounts of aluminium, etc. The whole point of an adjuvant, it's literally to irritate your immune system to promote an immune response. So the question is, do we have any comments on whether or not this new one with a brand new adjuvant will be safe if used concurrently with an existing approved vaccine with another adjuvant in it? And her response was, we have no data showing either way. So you can just play it again.
Is there any comment on using this vaccine at the same time with other adjuvanted vaccines?
We have no data to make a recommendation one way or the other.
So just to sort of put this in context of other vaccines, while preclinical studies were not done using these vaccines simultaneously, our general approach to immunizations is that they can be given at the same time in different limbs.
Dr. Hunter?
Are multiple adjuvanted vaccines used in Europe or other markets?
Dr. Ward, do you want to comment?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, I think unless there's any further discussion, we will take a vote on this recommendation.
I want to remind everyone to please check your voting whatever machine thing, and I don't know what it is. Voting is open.
Thank you very much.
Look at that.
So the voting is completed, and it is unanimous to support this recommendation. Thank you all.
Okay,
Does
pause
anybody
it.
have any comments they wish to make?
So I hope the people like listening and watching realize what just happened there. Here, let me break it down for you in the easiest way possible. They asked, was it 2 or 3 questions? The first question was, have we, and you can just go back to full screen again. The first question was, have we got any data showing whether or not this new adjuvant is safe to be used alongside existing adjuvanted vaccines? The answer was, we have no data to support a recommendation either way. In other words, an absence of evidence of safety, right? Because they have no evidence because they haven't looked. The next question, do they use multiple adjuvanted vaccines in Europe or other markets? The answer was no. So another major health network does not suggest doing this. They don't do it, right? The answer was no. The final question was, is it safe to use the... Oh, sorry, it wasn't even a question. It was a statement made by a panel member saying that the way they currently approach vaccines and immunizations is it's okay if you've got multiple adjuvants, provided they're put into different limbs. So one in the right arm and one in the left arm would be okay. And after those 3 questions or statements were made, 100% of that committee voted yes towards recommending that new vaccine with a brand new adjuvant.
Yeah. How in good conscience could you do that?
Exactly. So when I first saw this, because I saw this shared by Rebecca Barnett, Dystopian Down Under, follow her on Instagram and everywhere that she is, she's the best. But when I first saw her share this, I commented it and I said, imagine watching that video and thinking the people in that room had your best interest at heart. Like, what about that? Even the way that they speak does not fill me with any confidence at all. They speak like children.
Can I give you a car sales version?
Yeah.
If a customer came in and said, "Hey, I've got this really important question about this car. Can you answer it?" Nah, I can't. Okay, I'll buy it.
Yeah, but it's even... See, it's worse than that. Okay, let me give you an example from the car industry of how much worse this is. Because, I mean, you got to remember, this is them recommending to add vaccines to the childhood immunization schedule. So this is the group of people who are tasked with keeping those children safe, right? When I was in the motor trade over a decade, this would be 15 years ago, when I used to sell Kias, it was shortly after I first started. There was a situation where Kia did an ad campaign of the new Kia Optima SI, the base level model. They're selling it for $29,990. And they sent out all of the marketing materials and all the posters and everything like that. And we put all the posters up and we realized they had it says from $29,990. But the picture on the poster was the Platinum model, it's a $40,000 car. There was actually a case where a man walked into a Kia dealership in Australia and said, I want that car for $29,990. And the dealership tried to argue with it. He took them to court, and the court ruled in favour of the man. They had to sell him a Platinum model for $29,990 because the poster had the picture of the Platinum on it. And as far as Australian consumer law was concerned, it was misleading advertising if they didn't do that. And obviously Kia called all the dealerships straight away and said, rip all the advertising off because it's going to cause a major problem. That's how strict Australian consumer law is when it comes to having a picture of a car.
Yeah.
Right? And these are the idiots that are... They're the experts. When we're supposed to trust the science, that's the science. That room is the science. They are the experts making recommendations to the CDC to approve adding a vaccine to the childhood immunisation schedule. And think about it, that was 2018. That's 8 years ago. You think that's gotten better or worse since then?
Well, we've seen the result.
We have absolutely seen the result. Now, before we get into the new members of the panel, I also want to make a brief comment on this, because let's be honest, all of us that were hoping for a Trump presidency, we are very happy about certain things, and we are very unhappy about certain things as well. So this is one of the things that I think is very important for people who are on, I'll call it on the right. I really think that Trump voters are more centrists than right-wingers. But I think it's really important for us to practice what we preach and be consistent, because yes, Trump and the administration have done some great things since they've come in. They're doing some extremely concerning things as well. Like we discussed Palantir on the show last week. These LA riots that are happening at the moment too. I will not be ruling out the fact that maybe the Trump admin's got some agitators in there as well to send a message and get what they want through, because hey, every other government's done it beforehand, so why wouldn't they? And whether it is Trump actually saying do this or not, we all know the deep state does its own things to get its way, right? So I won't rule out all of that stuff. But one of the most concerning criticisms of the Trump admin up until this point has been people who are vocally supportive of the MAHA movement, so Make America Healthy Again, who helped get Bobby Kennedy into the position he's in and helped get Trump elected and all those things. And then all of a sudden, since Trump was inaugurated, there was no talk about mRNA vaccines anymore, right? And that was the big criticism of... is it Casey or Callie Means? Which one's the boy? I think it's Callie. I think.
Callie.
Anyway, the male of the Means siblings, when he appeared on, what's that podcast? Is it?
Danny Jones.
Danny Jones, yeah. And with Jack Cruz.
Credit to him.
Yep.
Credit to him for actually going on it.
Yep.
Jack Cruz is a smart guy.
Yep. And Mary Talley Bowden was on there, the doctor, who again became famous during COVID because she spoke out about the vaccine harms that she was seeing. And what they tried to press him on, because he's been installed, I can't remember exactly what position he's in, but he's actually been installed by the Trump administration to essentially lead a lot of these MAHA initiatives. And they were criticizing him because everything that he's saying about making America healthy again is correct. Processed foods and, getting the red dyes out of food, all that sort of stuff. But he refused to say anything about mRNA vaccines, and they refused to talk about it at all. And the thing that you just kept hearing over and over again from, third-party sources is it's like they all kept saying, yeah, but this is strategy. Like, this is strategy. You need to get the people in place first without rocking the boat too hard so then they can actually make changes when they're in. And my bullshit detectors went off when I was hearing that, because I'm like, no, like, I think that what's really happening here is what happens to everyone who gets into a position of power with good intentions, is that the day they take power, they get a knock on the front door and they go, oh, look at these pictures of, like, you've got a beautiful family there, Alex. You got a beautiful family. It'd be a real shame if anything ever happened to them, hey? Yeah. So all those things that you said you're going to do? Well, you're not going to do them, and this is why.
Or the counter to that is, inside the briefcase is a massive pile of cash for when you leave the place. Yeah. You scratch my back and, I'll scratch yours.
Or there's what they often talk about on the No Agenda show. They open up the folder and they have a picture of the person and they go, what's that in your mouth?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, anyway.
Or what's that on your computer?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But maybe they were true. Maybe they were correct. Because with this move that Kennedy has made this week, he has thrown out those people that you saw in that video, and he's installed 8 new people. Can you bring up, there was a Twitter thread I sent you of introducing the new members of the panel. And for long-time viewers of the show, you will recognize some of the names. So here's a post from End Tribalism in Politics. RFK Jr. just appointed 8 new members to the CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee. He says the goal...
Also, reducing the amount, reducing the cost, making it more...
Yep. I like that.
Save some dollars. Yeah.
I also wonder if choosing an even number of people is on purpose. So if there's a 50-50 split, maybe he gets to make the final call on things.
Or nothing happens. Yeah, that's a good point. There's something, Yeah.
He says the goal is to restore independence, transparency, and public trust in vaccine science. Here's a quick breakdown of who they are and where they stand on vaccines. So all the people are in the thread. So the first one, viewers will remember, Dr. Robert Malone. An early contributor to mRNA vaccine research, Malone now argues the tech was misused during the pandemic. He was banned from Twitter during COVID for warning about the spike protein toxicity. He's become one of the most vocal critics of mRNA shots in both adults and children. So there's a photo of Dr. Rob Malone, and we discussed him many times on the show. Second person, Dr. Cody Meissner, a pediatric infectious disease specialist from Dartmouth. Meissner served on prior FDA and CDC vaccine panels. He supported COVID vaccines for older adults, but raised red flags on risk-benefit for young children. He's expressed concerns about how fast mRNA shots were pushed into the childhood schedules. Third person, Dr. Joseph Hibbeln, a psychiatrist and former NIH nutrition scientist. Hibbeln is known for studying how diet affects brain and immune function. He hasn't been a public voice on COVID shots, but he's emphasized natural health over pharmaceutical intervention. No major record of him discussing mRNA vaccines specifically. Number 4, Dr. James Pagano, an emergency medicine physician with over 40 years of clinical experience. Pagano has worked in trauma centers and community hospitals around the country. He served on hospital committees focused on critical care and patient safety, and brings a frontline medical perspective to the new ACIP. No public statements found on COVID or mRNA vaccines. I haven't heard of Dr. Pagano and couldn't find a picture I was sure was him, so please reply if you have an image or more about his stance on vaccines. Fifth, Dr. Vicky Pebsworth, a nurse and public health PhD who previously advised the FDA on vaccine safety. She's advocated for better informed consent and more research into long-term effects. She's expressed caution about mRNA vaccines, particularly regarding adverse event tracking.
Shocking photo.
Yeah. 6, Dr. Michael Ross, an OBGYN with experience on CDC cancer prevention panels. Ross brings maternal health expertise. He hasn't been a major public figure in the COVID vaccine debate. No known statements on mRNA vaccines, but his focus may shape pregnancy vaccine policy. I wouldn't trust... Look at us. Go back up to his photo. Do you trust this guy for anything?
Well, what I found funny was that his name was Ross, and just there it looks like Bob Ross.
Yeah, totally. Just shave the moustache, bro. Just let it go. Look at that thing.
Yeah, it's bad.
He looks like he should be tying women to the train tracks.
Looks like Nuggets old man.
Yeah, a little bit.
Nice. Yeah.
Dr. Retsef Levi, a professor at MIT Sloan. Levi now analyzes health systems using risk management and data science. He's spoken out on vaccine side effect data being mismanaged and underreported. He's been highly critical of mRNA technology rollout without transparent long-term trials. And Dr. Martin Kulldorff, an epidemiologist formerly at Harvard. Kulldorff helped write the Great Barrington Declaration against lockdowns and mandates. He publicly opposed COVID vaccine mandates and criticised CDC policy. He's questioned the long-term safety of mRNA platforms, especially for young people. So he was someone we've also covered on the show before. One of the early people, and that's all of them. So I've been speaking for a lot. Give me your thoughts, Alex.
The criticism that my friend came up to me with was basically what the headlines were, which is he sacked everyone and everyone he's brought in is an anti-vaxxer.
Won't somebody think of the children?
Yeah, and it's literally, and his words, this is going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. That's the argument. Now, he has sent me some content. I've consumed all of it via the long-form podcast, which I haven't had time to do yet.
Mm-hmm.
And none of the short-form stuff that he sent me had any data whatsoever. It was all that exact same feeling stuff.
Yeah.
And when we had a bit of a screaming match about it, when we're talking prior, you know, I said, would you, with everything that you know now, do you think that the COVID vaccine should have been like rolled out the way that it was?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, oh yeah, but it's the benefit of hindsight. Like they were doing the best with the information they had at the time. I said, well, I'm a car dealer and I knew better.
Mm-hmm.
So I was right. So even if you use your excuse, then whatever technique or tactic the powers that be used to derive their solution was more flawed than a used car dealer.
Yeah, but you also have to look at the fact that, because again, one of the hardest things with all of these conversations is It's like religious people when they talk about God. When a good thing happens, they go, "Oh, thank God for that." When a bad thing happens, they go, "Well, the Lord works in mysterious ways." You know, they sort of have both outcomes covered in their particular ideology, and I think this is also true for a lot of these conversations, especially about health when it comes to experts and all of that sort of stuff. But the thing is, even the benefit of hindsight statement, it doesn't ring true when you look at the behaviour of what the health committees and the government is doing right now. So, for example, we know how much advertising the COVID vaccine got when it was first released and approved for children. It was constantly in your face. You must get these kids vaccinated to keep them safe, to save grandma. In Queensland, we closed schools because kids couldn't get vaccinated yet. That was the excuse, right? And then we just covered on the show a week ago that the TGA went and completely reversed their recommendation on vaccinating kids for COVID under 18, where they now say they do not recommend it at all because the benefits do not outweigh the potential risks. How much advertising have they done on that?
Yeah, zero.
And guess what? They just don't recommend it. They haven't banned it.
Yep.
So don't forget, they banned ivermectin during the pandemic. Yeah. They banned that. Yeah. They said that was dangerous. Yeah. Now they're saying these vaccines are potentially dangerous for children. They haven't banned them, though. And they're still advertising them to adults. Every day, and look, I know that my Facebook feed is completely retarded because my algo looks for it. But if I just scroll through my Facebook feed, there is news article after news article after news article about, new COVID strain. Look, as cases hit 5,000 a day because people aren't taking the vaccine. They're still pushing it now. So you can't say benefit of hindsight when the authorities are not actually looking back at the information and changing the sales pitch. They're still selling the shit.
The argument I made with my friend was, we know that they were deceitful.
Yep.
In the very first mention of the vaccine, which was when they quoted the safety and efficacy rate.
Yeah.
It was 95%. They kept saying over and over, multiple times a day, every day, on every medium. And like Jason and I have said 1,000 times, the reason why we thought something was up is we're from a sales background.
That's right.
We can smell bullshit.
Yeah.
We knew it was a sales tagline because everyone was quoting exactly the same thing in exactly the same way.
Yep.
That's given to them. That's not real.
Correct.
That's not organic. That information was given. This is how you deliver this message.
And the biggest red flag for us early on too was when they kept calling it safe and effective, when it was a brand new drug for a novel pathogen. So there was no long-term testing on the vaccine. They had absolutely no way of knowing if it was safe long-term. So if they can't actually prove that it's safe because they don't have any data, you can't call it safe. So then you have to call into question whether or not it's effective either. Because if you keep tacking those two things together, safe and effective, well, if you're lying about the first one, you're probably lying about the second one too.
But the thing that I tried to nail him on is the phase 3 clinical trial data, which used relative risk instead of absolute risk. And so the
relative risk reduction as opposed to absolute
relative risk reduction.
Yeah.
So I said to him, everyone knew that data.
Yep.
Right? That's what they based the advertising campaign off. What do you think the public would have done if they quoted the same data but gave you the absolute risk reduction being, 0.03%?
Yeah, something around there.
It's the exact same information quoted in a different way.
Yeah.
What do you think how many people would have got the shots if they had said 0.03%?
No one would have.
Zero. So they used the other one. Why did they use the other one? Well, because the incentive was not to make people healthy. It was to sell units.
Sell units, that's right.
95% sounds way better than 0.03%.
Correct. Absolutely.
And so when he's like, well, that's the information I had at the time. That was the information we had at the time.
Yep.
The way that they sold it to you was they picked the convenient one to move units.
Correct.
And then you go into the fact that they haven't done any safety data. You know, I've spoken about my story at the time. Me and my partner at the time tried to go to the doctors to get an exemption. And we said, hey, we're trying to have a baby. Can we want an exemption? And she literally, the doctor pulls out from the TGA, sits it on the desk. It's recommended for people pregnant, trying to get pregnant. And we knew full well that they had done zero testing. Zero.
My wife was pregnant at the time that the Queensland teachers mandate came in. We tried to get an exemption. They said you can't get an exemption because we recommend it for pregnant women. So that was what the doctors said. And then, fortunately, she worked at a private school at the time. So the private school, the teachers were not actually governed by the mandate. It was only state school teachers. But they got their lawyers to contact the state government to go, hey, we've got this teacher. She's going on maternity leave soon anyway. Doesn't want to take the vaccine because she's pregnant. Like, what can we do? And they literally emailed her school's lawyers back saying, if she won't take the vaccine, stop paying her.
Yeah.
That's what they said. So, look, the other smoking gun that I want to give to people as well, because this is something that is easily provable, we went through the TGA's non-clinical report on the stage 3 trial data, and it clearly shows the distribution of the lipid nanoparticle in the body. So, one of the sneaky things about the stage 3 trial was that they claimed to not actually test where the mRNA went in people's bodies. Because remember what the tagline was. Oh, it just stays in your shoulder muscle. We just inject it into your shoulder muscle. The mRNA stays localized and it degrades like that. And then it's out of your system, right? That's what they said to you at the beginning of this. However, the non-clinical report shows that there was wide-scale distribution of the lipid nanoparticle. So just a quick refresher, for even though I talk about this almost every week, the lipid nanoparticle is the fatty covering that the mRNA was inside. The whole point of having that is twofold. Number one, if you have naked mRNA in your system, your immune system's just going to destroy it immediately before it can do its job. So the lipid nanoparticle is there both to protect it, but also the fatty lipid nanoparticle actually helps stick to other cells, so then they can join together like two bubbles and have the mRNA inserted into your cells. That's how it gets into your cells in the first place, to instruct your cells on how to create this spike protein. So they knew, the TGA knew, because it's in the report, that on day 2 of after being vaccinated, there was wide-scale spreading of the lipid nanoparticles to everywhere in your body, to your brain, to your kidneys, to your heart, to the women's ovaries. And one of the biggest concentrations of it was in women's ovaries. And it was, so they tested on day 1 and they tested on day 2. And on day 2, the amount of lipid nanoparticle was still increasing. And then they stopped testing. So if the lipid nanoparticle, which is whole and sole reason to have it, is to protect the mRNA until it can enter a cell to instruct that cell on how to create spike protein, if that is distributed throughout your entire body, then it means the mRNA is distributed too, because the mRNA is inside the lipid nanoparticle. They knew that, and yet, when they sold it to you at the beginning, they said it gets injected into your shoulder and it stays localized in your shoulder. So we know they were lying, right? You can prove it uncategorically that they were lying at the time. So you can't just give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. It also, that's a great segue into a thing that a topic and a subject that we've brought up a bunch of times, which is where science falls down is when you either don't do the study or do a study on a thing to obfuscate the result that the people, or the answer to the question that the people are asking.
Yeah.
So how many times did we speak about, the fact checkers on every single study that was done, which basically bamboozled you, where the fact check was longer than the study itself, and filled you full of all this guff at the top, and then said at the bottom, hey, we know this is right, but we're telling you it's wrong because it doesn't fit with the narrative that we're trying to
push. And we know that no one's going to read to the bottom.
Yeah. And then also having and I think this will... COVID made it obvious, which is why we're asking questions about the other childhood vaccination system. Now, one of his responses when he said, he picked one vaccine that was in this podcast, which was the one for... I can't even remember what it is. that is going to kill 180,000 people if you stop doing it. My instant reaction is to think, well, I haven't looked into it, so I don't know. So at this point, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
What I do know is that the system that allowed the last vaccine to go through was not only flawed, but upside down.
Yep.
So therefore, it is safe to at least question all previous vaccines if they had followed that same pathway.
Yeah.
Then how do we actually know? And also, what you've just quoted me is exactly what they quoted through, like, is it modeling?
Yeah, it was exactly. So what you're saying is these COVID vaccines were justified in the exact same way as the argument he's using to justify these other childhood vaccinations.
Yeah.
If we don't vaccinate, it'll kill hundreds of thousands of kids. Okay, cool. What's that based on?
Yeah.
Is it modeling like COVID was, which was all fake?
Yep. The other logical sort of extension that I make is, well, and the video that we played before is a great example of it. What's the immunisation register here? How many vaccines does a kid get here?
I think it's like 17.
Okay.
I think the mandatory ones are about 17 by the time they're...
And how many in America?
It's 84.
Okay, so American health outcomes better or worse than ours?
Well, no. Well, what your mate's saying is that 100% of Australian children should be dead by now because they're about 60 vaccines short.
So using just pure logic would say there's obviously too many vaccines in America because their health outcomes are worse than ours and Europe's.
Well, hold on. I will hold you back there a little bit because correlation does not equal causation. You can't say it's obvious that the America's health outcomes are worse because they've got more vaccines, but you can say it is not obvious that their health outcomes are any better than Australian children, even though the Australian children don't get that many vaccines.
Yes. Yeah. So just using some really basic logical arguments, you could at least give you the impetus to question, and this is what RFK is doing, he's questioning the whole system. And we agree, like, you know, we've covered the TGA here in Australia. The TGA shouldn't exist.
No, it shouldn't.
Like, now that we know what they do, that shouldn't exist. No one would cop that, and people don't even want to hear it anymore. People would not cop that the regulator is paid by the people selling
the drugs. That's right.
And that 50% of the people on the TGA said that they receive direct payments, have a conflict of interest, a registered conflict of interest, and the other 50% decided not to tell you.
That's right, which means 100% receive money from pharmaceutical companies.
Okay, so now that we know that system is, we should know how to navigate this space.
Here's another data point too, just to add to this. In America, 30% of medications that are approved by the FDA have their approvals withdrawn within the first 12 months because of safety issues. 30%. 1 in 3 drugs that these expert committees approve, who all get paid money by these pharmaceutical companies to approve these drugs, 30% of them get removed in the first 12 months because they harm people. It's fact. Data point. So an interesting point is, because like Alex and I were discussing this during the week, and this is a mentality thing which people need to educate themselves on and actually need to practice this mentality. Because you need to look at things like health through the guise of you would look at any other product that someone's trying to sell you. So we have a unique viewpoint of this because we're car salesmen, right? Like at heart, we're both car salesmen. And none of you, even our listeners, none of you would walk into a dealership and speak to one of us and call us an expert and trust every single thing we say, would you? And why wouldn't you do that? Because we have a conflict of interest with the information that we tell you. Because we have a vested interest in you buying our product because we get paid
and everyone
more
knows
money.
that.
Everyone knows it, right?
Yeah.
It's the reason why people don't trust car salespeople, real estate agents, lawyers. Like no one trusts these people because the business model is they want to sell you something, right?
The incentive is transparent.
That's right. We used to joke about it all the time during COVID. I wish people would be like, oh, I don't know what car to buy. Trust the experts. Just go to the dealership and whatever the salesperson tells you, buy that. They're the
I've
experts,
just developed
man.
the technique, Jason. I've got the skeleton key for closing deals.
Yeah.
This is what I say. Customer walks on the showroom floor. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, thanks for coming to the dealership. How can I help you? Oh, we're thinking about this car. Okay, well, our models have shown that if you don't buy this car, 180,000.
Yeah. Do you want these children to die, Alex?
yeah. That's the go.
What are you, an anti-Honda? But okay, let me give you another little data point. I listened to this clip from Jeff Bezos. He was on a podcast a few weeks ago, and it was really good. He was talking about when he was building Amazon and times when maybe things weren't going according to plan. And whenever something would go wrong in the business, what he would do is he'd get all his managers together and he'd be like, pull me the data. I want to see the data. And he would bring all the data in and like they would show him and he would go through all the data. And then he would ask different employees around maybe the system that was not going well or whatever. He'd ask them their opinion on it. And he goes, obviously, when I'm having those conversations, they're all anecdote. They're anecdotal opinions of staff members. But he said from doing this for so many years, what he found was when the data that he was given conflicted with the anecdotes that he was receiving, the anecdotes were usually right. Because the data is usually being manipulated by someone who's either trying to make themselves look better or cover their ass. That's what happened. Like bullshit in, bullshit out. We all know that when it comes to data entry.
Also, too, just like the interpretation might not. You might build a database, and I think car dealerships are doing this all the time. The problem with accountant-run dealerships is they're only looking at the bottom line, and it doesn't factor in a lot of the things like the energy of the staff or the happiness of the consumer, and even the questions asked to find out how happy they are. The data set is bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, we've spoken about this on the show before, but it is the perfect example of where data gives you a complete misread. We sent, as a motor industry, if you buy a new car, you get sent a survey asking you about how your experience was from buying that car. We only sell cars to 1 in 5 people we speak to. So we only ask the people who did business with us, how do we go? We don't ask the other 80% of people who don't buy from us, who are the people that you do want to convert next time.
Yeah.
So this is that it's like that base rate fallacy we discussed on the show the other week. Like it's a data set, but it doesn't tell you anything, and it doesn't give you anything useful because it only tells you it's the people that you've already done business with. Well, who cares? You've got their business. Why do we miss these other 80% of deals?
It's funny because I was talking to one of the young guys at the gym about this. One of the ways that I help make a decision about whatever a hot topic is obviously you see stuff on social media. Mm-hmm. You might read some articles online. You might try to cut it back to the basics, like the first principle. Like let's go to so someone's arguing about the law. Well, let's go and read the law first, so we can see the reaction to it.
Yep. Let's
go find out what that thing actually is. Does the outrage match what's written in this thing? Mm-hmm. And then what I also try to do is ground it into reality by saying, does this thing actually affect me in the real world? Mm-hmm. And actually have a look and try and touch and feel it in the real world.
Yeah.
And a lot of those times, it's essentially a narrative that's built online, which is completely devoid of reality.
Totally.
So and with the invention of these AI, these deep fakes, this is about, like, if you don't do that method, you will get it wrong every time.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be able to have, that love story that you sent me between Elon Musk and Trump to that soundtrack. I mean, it was glorious.
Yeah.
But we're like a year away from those things being imperceivable.
Correct.
Right?
They're probably imperceivable now, and they probably flood the news space with ones that still look a little bit dodgy, so we all still think that we can assess what's real AI and what's AI. But yeah, Alex,
believe nothing of what you hear and half of what you see.
Yeah, and what Alex is saying is super important here, because essentially we live in a post-truth world now. It is post-truth. So our generation, we are the luckiest generation, I believe, in human history to navigate this particular point in time, because we grew up in a pre-internet world. Like, emails became a thing when we were kids, right? So we lived in the world prior to the internet controlling our lives. Then we grew up with the internet. So as the internet got more and more widespread usage, we lived that experience. So we've grown with it. We've seen the different iterations of the internet. We've seen what it started out, what it transformed into, and where it's at now. So, like, everyone jokes about how boomers get scammed online all the time. They didn't have that experience, right? It makes sense. They're the easiest people to trick because they believe mainstream news and trusted sources. All you have to do is send them an email.
The fishing trawler gave birth to the
To the-
beluga whale
Yeah.
and helped raise its child
Yeah.
on the ship.
So all you have to do is send them an email saying, this is Karl Stefanovic. I'm stuck in Afghanistan reporting. I need $5,000 to get out of the country.
Yeah.
Can you please help me? And they'll
Yeah.
get scammed, right? The younger people who've come after us too, they were born into a world where the internet was freely available. And so that's the only world that they know. They don't even know that there was a different world that existed once before. So we have a unique perspective on this. We also have the unique perspective of sales and our sales careers, because it was literally our job to smell bullshit every day. Like, people think that car salespeople are the dogs. They're not. I can tell you right now, it's the customers, bro.
Yeah, we have a saying, buyers are liars.
That's right. We get lied to every single day. Every day, right?
Hey, what's the big one? Oh, think about it.
Yeah. Oh, have you got a business card? So we have that unique perspective, but the most relevant unique perspective that we have to this health discussion is we experienced the censorship during the pandemic of online media because of the show. So most of you will remember, we started out on YouTube. We were a YouTube-only show at the beginning, and we were building. And every week we'd pick up an extra couple of subscribers and things were going well until we started talking about COVID. And we'd gotten to like 75 subscribers on YouTube, and we used to average about 150 to 200 views a week on YouTube, and we're going, how good is this? We're building. And then the moment that the censorship started at the end of 2020, our views went to like 15 an episode. So even though we had 75 subscribers, it still wasn't even showing new episodes to the people who subscribed to the channel. And then it only got worse from there, because then we started getting strikes for saying, breaching their medical misinformation policy by telling people that the vaccine was clearly not stopping transmission, or telling people, hey, there's a whole bunch of serious adverse events that people are experiencing post-vaccination that people just don't even know about. So maybe you should take 2 seconds before you just run out and get your booster. So we got all those strikes. We also experienced zero growth on Instagram in 4 years. Mm-hmm. So when we started, right, we tried to pump through Instagram and we were building. We got to 130 people. Then when the censorship kicked in, it stopped. We had zero growth for 4 years. Now we've got 800 and something people on there. So for all of you that follow us, thank you for joining. We really appreciate it. But we've experienced that. And again, if you're a regular punter who gets the majority of their information from the internet, thinking that you're clever because you don't listen to mainstream media, but you view public sentiment online, you have no idea the fact that your whole online existence is curated for you too. So we experienced it in real time. We would leave comments on certain pages that we had friends that they couldn't see them because it said the wrong things. Individual comments were being censored.
Yeah.
So that when you would go on Facebook, for example, and something about vaccination would come up, the only comments you saw were from people going, oh my God, I got it. I feel so safe now. Vaccines are the best thing since sliced bread. So all you saw, they cut out the other half of the argument. So if you think that you are getting all of the correct information, you're not. So you have to actively go looking for it. That's the lesson. You have to do more work now than you've ever had to do. And I'm telling you right now too, going to an AI to try to answer your questions is the worst thing that you can do. Because they're all full of shit too. We've got ChatGPT, Grok, Google AI, all the different AI systems. Go and ask them all the same question and you'll get a different answer from every single one.
Yeah, that's not the answer too.
That's right.
It's definitely not the answer.
So now is a time more important than ever to actually take stock of your own individual anecdotal world experience. Because your world experience is the realest thing that you can experience. So
one of our listeners, he hit me up about this. He loves the show. Shout out. He loves the show. And he said, does this stuff that you talk about, because it's quite heavy, does it upset you? I said, no, it doesn't upset me, but I do feel because I know what a lot of others don't, and it's so important, I believe that I would be doing a disservice, a moral disservice to society for not talking about it.
Totally agree.
And So it doesn't, if anything, I feel good about the messages. And Jason and I talk about it all the time. It'd be nice, it's nice, because I've had people accuse me, say, oh yeah, you know that now because of, Father Time. Like, no, we've got a permanent record. We can go back and have a look. We've been saying it the whole time. And we've been proven wrong very few times.
Yeah. And
I think there's really only one thing that we got proven wrong.
What was it?
Ukraine war.
Yeah, but that was mainly me. I was wrong on that one. You thought that it was going to happen, and I was dead wrong.
But the big thing is you have to anchor to reality.
Yeah.
Online is not real, and online is getting less real.
Yeah.
With AI, the reality online is a fantasy.
Yeah. And it's the saddest thing too, because the most compelling form of evidence that we've had in our whole lifetimes has been video footage of something occurring.
Yeah.
It's been the most compelling evidence.
Now
that means nothing.
Prompt, you can recreate whatever you want.
Which is
like,
also...
Think about this. Think about what models have done to people's behavior.
Yeah.
Imagine if it... So that was just verbal models. They never showed you the models. They'll just say, we got models. Now what if they could visually prove the outcome of these models, and it's completely fabricated? What that's going to do?
What, you mean like the videos coming out of China of people falling dead in the streets at the beginning of COVID? You mean like those?
Yeah.
But dude, at the same time too, I half think that the reason why elites have pushed so hard to create such powerful AI video making tools is to discredit every real video of them doing the wrong thing. Oh no, that's just AI.
I saw someone selling a fake finger that you attach to your hand. So it shows you got 6 fingers, so that whatever you do wrong, if it gets filmed, you can just claim
like, oh, look, that's AI. Look, I've got 6 fingers. It's clearly AI.
All right, should we move on?
Sure.
I've got a quick thing. So remember last week and the week
Hold on,
before,
before we move on, we have to do it. Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us this week on the VK Bros.
Welcome.
Please assist the channel by hitting the subscribe button, smash that like button, leave a comment below to say g'day, and tell your friends and family, share the video to people that you think might need to watch it.
Let us have the heavy conversations on your behalf.
Yeah, that's right. Say hi to your mum for us.
I spoke about and Jason expressed his concern. 2 weeks ago, we asked if you wanted me to do a video about money, and the nature of money and where it comes from, and because if you knew it would change the way that you live life. And then no one said dick last week, and no one has said balls this week either. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go do a video. Well, I kind of don't have to anymore because Tom Bilyeu, or T-Bone, as I call him because it's easier, has done this video. Jason's got the link. He'll post it
in the show notes.
He does a better job. It's 49 minutes, to be honest.
And we're going to play the whole thing for you right now.
No, if you did the first half of it is the main core part. The last half of it is more about the storytelling or like the people involved.
Yep.
It is a great explainer.
Cool. And
he only did this 3 days ago.
Yeah, okay.
So it's almost like we had this consciousness, this connected consciousness of why we think it's really important.
And he's a lefty too.
He's a mad lefty.
You know what? Do you know how your consciousness connected to his? Yeah. Through the Tesla.
Yeah, maybe. I might play the first, just the intro. Just the intro.
No press, no records. If anyone asks, they're going duck hunting in Georgia. But they're not going duck hunting. They're building a bank, a private one that prints money out of thin air and loans it to the government for a fee, interest charged on every dollar. This is the true story of how modern banking was born and inflation along with it. This is the story of how your savings get siphoned, how every boom and bust for the last 100+ years was scripted to move wealth from the poor and middle class to the wealthiest few in a system hidden in plain sight. What they created is the foundation of our broken financial system. They created the Federal Reserve, and it changed the world forever. This is the ultimate thriller, the real-life story of how the system became rigged against us all, and the man who exposed it by writing one of the most dangerous books of the 20th century. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And if you've never heard of this book, that means that the bankers and politicians are doing their job. Like the Matrix, you're not supposed to see it, merely live inside of it. Countless people recommended G. Edward Griffin's masterpiece to me as I tumbled down the rabbit hole of how money actually works, but nothing prepared me for actually reading it. It is a masterclass on cause and effect that attempts to map the modern economy from its inception on Jekyll Island through to today. I really doubt that history is going to remember The Creature from Jekyll Island as being perfectly accurate, and there's no doubt that at times it strays from the details of what's provable conspiracy into the lane of conspiracy theory, but I've yet to find a model that has higher predictive validity. Here's the core thesis of Griffin's The Creature from Jekyll Island. The modern economy is like a computer system with a precisely engineered flaw that creates a backdoor that allows its creators to reach into virtually any bank account in the world and steal money. Now,
I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
It's one of, I've saved it. I'll probably download it actually just so I have it, because it is the best explanation. And I actually had a conversation with a good friend of mine who is still in the car industry, working for the dealership, and I asked him outright, I was like, how much are you earning? Like, what are you going to finish on this year? And he told me the number, and I'm like, dude, you earned that number 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And your KPIs higher or lower than they were back then? And he goes, oh, way higher. And he's in a position now, because, you know, we're middle-aged now. Can we call ourselves middle-aged?
Yeah.
We're middle-aged, and we now have options that we never had as younger people. And I didn't mean it as, like, to speak derogatorily to him. It was basically just trying to shine some light on the fact that you don't need to be there anymore.
Mm.
And if you knew that through no fault of your own, your value proposition is being sucked away from you,
Mm-hmm.
well, maybe you might trade some of that in for getting some of your life back.
Yeah. So
there's some very real world ramifications to this. I implore everyone to watch this. Everyone to watch it. I'll start posting it up too when this launches on Monday.
Yep.
Everyone should watch this. It will really, and my challenge to you is to be bold enough to act on it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be like, it'll turn your world upside down. And a lot of people, now that I've said that, a lot of people won't do it because they won't want to hear that information. But when you know it, you will make moves that will benefit you exponentially.
Totally. Yeah. And getting back to what you were saying before about how the friend of yours and the listener of the show asked that, okay, like, you guys talking about this stuff all the time, does it get you down, or does it, you know, make you angry or anxious or whatever it was? The reality is people are scared of things they don't understand. That's why people don't like looking. That's like they don't do their own research, because it's like you're pulling up the rock in the garden, scared of what you might find underneath it. So you just leave the rock sitting where it is, because you feel safer in your blissfully ignorant state.
Yeah, totally.
The thing is, if you go and watch that, now I haven't seen it, but I know what he's going to talk about. Especially for all of you Australian listeners, this will make you understand a lot more of why, for some reason, every single decision the government makes, it supports increasing housing prices.
Yeah. It perfectly explains it.
Mm-hmm. At the same token, too, once you know how this system works, you'll start to realize why Alex and I are such Bitcoin maximalists. That's a big thing. I also saw something this week from Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, where he was saying you don't even need to own a full Bitcoin. If you can own 0.1 of a Bitcoin, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's your goals. You got to get yourself to 0.1 of a Bitcoin, which at the moment is about 15 grand. 0.1 of a Bitcoin. Sorry, 16 grand roughly. But again, you have to take the hard step. And a lot of you listeners, you have done the hard thing, especially for those of you who've been with us for years now. You've listened to, episode 254, you've listened to a minimum 250 hours worth of content about subjects that you probably haven't even thought of researching yourself. And I'm sure that a lot of you have gone out and done your own research around this, because this is the other thing too, and this is what we always advocate for. Don't believe us for everything that we say, because we could get stuff wrong too.
Sure.
But the biggest thing that we want to encourage you guys to do is to ask the questions that other people aren't asking. Because there's a reason why people aren't asking them. It's because they've been psyoped into not asking questions so that the system gets to keep functioning the same way that it always has.
He does go through that. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, interesting. On that note, I sent you an article about the Aussie housing market, which I just want to cover briefly because I think it is relevant to that conversation.
Fordham?
Yeah. So let me just get this. Okay, so we'll go through this quickly. Ben Fordham unleashes spray as Albanese fails to meet housing target because of immigration. If you can scroll down. Government set to miss own target of 1.2 million homes by 2029. Or who would have thought? Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his government has been slammed by radio host Ben Fordham over Australia's worsening housing crisis. It follows the release of a report from the government's National Housing Supply and Affordability Council, another council which should just fuck off because clearly they're not doing anything.
Price high.
Yeah, showing Australia will miss its own housing targets. According to the report, housing construction is at its lowest point in a decade, with just 177,000 new dwellings completed in 2024, well short of the government's 233,000 home target. So about 60,000 homes short. Can I ask you, Alex, how many other products or commodities that are at a record high price level, therefore are record levels of profitable to make and sell, how many of other products are missing their targets by 30%?
No one.
None of them, because you want to strike while the iron's hot, right? The council warned that housing is not being built quickly enough to meet growing demand and relieve affordability pressures. In quotes, the council's analysis shows that expected new housing supply will be insufficient to meaningfully improve housing affordability for all households, the report stated. It forecasts that only 938,000 new dwellings will be completed across Australia over the 5-year Housing Accord period ending 30th of June 2029, far below the 1.2 million target. No state or territory is expected to meet its allocated share.
Correct. That's correct.
On Thursday, Fordham lashed out at the government, blaming slow building rates and rising immigration for exacerbating the crisis. In quotes, the Albanese government promised to build more houses. Today they're building less. They promised to lower immigration. Today they're bringing in more, he said. The PM will tell us he's bringing down the migration numbers and building as many homes as he can, but we're not seeing it. We simply can't build the houses fast enough. What we need is a sharp focus on skilled migration and coordination of housing supply policy with immigration numbers. The NHSAC report also pointed to persistent challenges such as labour shortages, low productivity and rising material costs as major factors dragging down new supply. Shadow Minister for Housing and Homelessness, Senator Andrew Bragg, has slammed at Labor's performance, saying the government had failed to support the very people responsible for delivering new housing. Labor has failed to get the houses built because they've done nothing to help the people who build the houses, builders, tradespeople and developers, Bragg said. He further highlighted that the government's flagship $10 billion Housing Australia Future Fund, covered on the show previously when it was launched, failed to deliver a single new home during the previous term. Instead, it was acquiring existing housing, thereby making the supply problem worse. Labor's Housing Infrastructure Fund also failed to build any homes with $1.5 billion, he added. Housing Minister Claire O'Neill last week pointed to bureaucracy as a major barrier to construction.
Who creates the bureaucracy, Jason?
Well, the Housing Minister is...
Claire O'Neill.
Yeah. It's just too hard to build a house in this country, O'Neill told the ABC.
I'm glad she fucking said it.
And it's becoming uneconomic to build the kind of housing that our country needs most, affordable housing, especially for first home buyers. One person arrives to Australia to live every 44 seconds, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics.
This is what I've been saying. Hold on, I just need to pause here because this is this is another topic where people don't use logic.
Yeah, I knew you'd enjoy this one.
where they say, we need people to build the houses, so we've got to bring them in. And then I say, where are they going to live?
Yeah.
So what's easier? What's easier? Building a house or stopping one person or family from coming.
Can you build a house in 43 seconds, Alex?
No.
In 2022 to 23, net overseas migration hit 536,000, the highest in Australia's history, while in 2023-24 it dropped to 446,000 and is expected to fall to 340,000 in 2024-25. As of March 2025, the national median dwelling price surpassed $1 million for the first time, reaching, it doesn't matter, it's just slightly above $1 million. The annual growth rate slowed to 5.9% in March 2025, down from 9.5% the previous year. New data about Australians' migration will be released on Friday. Just a note on that new median house price, or the dwelling price, because I saw a post on this the other day online. Here's a fun fact for you. In 2019, the median dwelling price in Australia was $536,000. Now, 6 years later, it is double at $1 million. What did we just talk about with the supply of total Australian dollars in the Aussie economy, Alex, last week's show?
It's up by 40 to 50%.
No, it's doubled. So the total amount of Australian dollars in circulation in 2019 was $1.13 trillion. In 2025, 6 years later, it is $2.26 trillion. So here's the thing, guys. It's not just the fact that we've got record immigration and record demand chasing too few houses. It is also the fact that in that same 6 year period where the median house price has doubled, the value of the Aussie dollar has decreased by 50%. That's the wealth transfer. That's where it comes from. They printed money via the system that you'll learn about when you watch Tommy B's video that Alex has educated us on. They created the conditions to allow rampant money printing out of thin air, and in Australia, it is all based around our housing market. And the more they support higher house prices, guess what, ladies and gents? The worse the inflation will get. But you know what that means? For Bitcoin maximalists like me and Alex, we'll be all right.
I'll see if I can find. You keep talking. Let me see if I can find that Coinbase ad.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, actually, no, I think I've got it up here already. This is like a great way to illustrate this point for coiners.
In 2012, you need 30,000 Bitcoin to buy this house. A decade later, it had only cost you 20 Bitcoin. And today, it could be yours for 5. If home prices keep falling in Bitcoin, why do they keep rising in dollars?
Dude, I love it.
Simple yet effective.
I love it. I like the thing that you posted up the other day on the BK Bros page. The best thing about Bitcoin is when you're telling someone.
Yes, when someone disagrees with you about it, 5 years down the track, not only can you shove it in their face that you are right, but you can show them the extraordinary amount of money them being wrong has cost them.
Well, it's funny because I was only thinking about. I had great banter with the guy who's anti-Bitcoin, pro-property.
Yep.
He used to go to the gym. He doesn't go there anymore. He's moved. When Bitcoin dropped to like 16,000 US, I walked in and he goes, "Oh, look, it's the poorest guy in the gym." And right at the time, he was right. Yeah. It's now
over. It was 100
6 times that.
Yeah. Yeah. But fortunately, his housing price has doubled in that same period of time.
Yeah, but off 6x.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Just to finish off the show, because we are running a little bit long, but that's why we started early so we could. Can we just briefly discuss can we just say RIP to the project and to Q&A?
Oh.
I got a few thoughts on this, and I shared something during the week which I think is an interesting little angle to it. And look, this is pure tinfoil hat tomfoolery. but I was thinking about it because so Q&A and The Project are both very long-running shows. So I think they both started in the late 2000s, like 2007, 2008, somewhere around there. And were both very popular shows at the beginning.
Yeah.
The way they
I used to
started.
watch The Project.
Yeah, I used to watch The Project too when it first came out, and Q&A used to have some really good discussions on it. And anyway, I went through trying to find the viewership numbers because I thought it was really strange because they're both different networks. You got ABC government funded and you got Channel 10, right? So I thought it very strange.
Who's not funded?
Yeah. Well, not anymore. I thought it was interesting that those two shows literally got cancelled within a day of each other when they are on different networks that have completely different funding models. So I went through trying to find the viewership numbers, and I could only find Q&A from between 2020 and 2023. I couldn't find the project's numbers because they must hide them, which means they're probably dog shit, and they have been dog shit for a long time. But in 2020, Q&A's viewership was about 468,000 people. 2021, it dropped to 250,000 people.
Don't forget, you're locked in your house.
Yeah, true. 2020.
No, well, it should be, so that should be artificially higher. Like, people made channels on YouTube in that time.
Yeah, because you got to remember, the lockdowns really started mid-2020 but continued through 2021. So they should have had a higher viewer. You're right. So 2020, 468,000. 2021, 250,000. 2022, 228,000. 2023, 220,000. Apparently continued to drop from there. But the thing that got me was, yes, there was a significant drop-off between 2020 and 2021. But if it was still sustainable on 2021 numbers, the drop-off hasn't been considerable since then in subsequent years. So I was thinking about it, and and this is my I'm trying not to be biased here when I come to my analysis of these programs. Essentially, where I think these programs went wrong was they alienated 50% of the country.
Oh, you don't think that was... It's like a shoe store only selling left shoes.
Yeah, this is literally it's the Michael Jordan principle. Everyone asked Michael Jordan in the 90s, when his star was at its highest, why he doesn't get involved in politics. And his line, Republicans buy shoes too.
Yep.
Right? So he didn't want to alienate 50% of the country. Both of those programs went pretty far to the left over the last 3 years, particularly during COVID. And I think that was probably based on a lot of government policy, because as we remember from long-time viewers of the show, in 2020 and 2021, the Australian government gave every network TV station a 100% tax offset for those 2 years because, in quotes, there was less advertising opportunities. That was bullshit. We all know that the whole reason why they did that was to sell the government COVID narrative. That's what they were being paid for. But the government, under Scott Morrison, who just got like Australia's highest honour, an Order of Australia, by the way.
Yeah, well, because he had so many briefs, so he was a hard-working man. He had like 10 briefs.
Absolutely. Hardest working man in politics. I get it.
Yeah.
No wonder why I needed a holiday.
And $10 million a day worth of consultants.
Yeah. That's a lot of people to coordinate.
Yeah.
But I believe that during COVID, there was a government mandate to these news stations to go, we need to push the government narrative. That's the only way that you're going to get this tax offset. So if you want that money, you got to push leftism. Someone they used, I think it was either Grok or a different AI, to do a search of the left or right leaning biases in ABC's news articles over that same period. 90% of the articles are pro-left-wing stories, only 10% are pro-right-wing on ABC. Now, for those of you who don't know, as a publicly funded broadcaster, they're supposed to be politically neutral, and we all know that they're clearly not. But here's my other question too. Maybe it's not just about alienating 50% of the country, because obviously if you're trying to spin a narrative, the networks will want to keep you around. But I was wondering...
I can, just before you keep that point,
yep.
But I can prove the bias right here. I've just gone to ABC Australia's YouTube page, and I'll just read the headlines. This is most recent, okay? Yep. Teenage dad Jaden grew a non-profit from street to storefront. The future of sustainable design. Bodies taken to hospital after Air India plane crash. The dark side of the UFC. California's request to withdraw troops from LA protests rejected.
Yep.
So so that's a very polar thing, but they've picked a side clearly.
Yep.
Police suspect death of Sydney couple as murder-suicide. Snow dusting blankets part of New South Wales. Where's something?
What's Elon's latest?
Australian PM says shooting of journalist raised with US administration. Thousands of Australians join class action lawsuit against Tesla. So all of that is left-leaning. And that is up to 2 days ago.
Yeah. So here was my thought. How much money did Channel 10 and the ABC receive from USAID? If we have any insiders who listen to this show or know anyone who works for either ABC or Channel 10, can you try to find out whether or not any of that USAID money found its way into those institutions? Because I can tell you right now, there's already irrefutable proof that USAID money was being funneled into Australian universities to support certain programs. And the reason why you know that is because, as the ABC reported eloquently only a few months ago, Trump has gone full authoritarian because he's withdrawn the funding from universities who do not engage in free speech or universities who push transgenderism in their classrooms. So he actually removed funding from those universities. I mean, like, you have to ask the question, why are Australian universities getting funded from a foreign government in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, do people not see, like, how many times do you hear news stories about, like, foreign interference in an election? Russia's trying to manipulate the Australian people using bot farms. Meanwhile, the universities that we send our kids to get educated are being funded by a foreign government. You don't think that's potential influence?
I just tried to find it. The USAID, it says here, administration of leave. Because you used to be able to go to the USAID website and then upgrade it so you could search. It's not there anymore.
Interesting. But yeah, I would be fascinated to know if because maybe those like numbers when they went down to 200,000 viewers, maybe those numbers weren't sustainable, but they were while they were still receiving backdoor funding. And now that the Trump administration's in, has cut the backdoor funding off, all of a sudden those shows are no longer viable. Just an interesting thought bubble.
Okay, so we're reading this together, so it might not say anything that we want to say. The US Agency for International Development has historically played a significant role in funding projects in Australia and the Indo-Pacific. However, recent actions of the Trump administration, including the suspension of USAID, far-reaching impacts of these initiatives. For instance, the US provided $100,000 for immediate relief efforts during Australia's bushfires.
$100,000? Thanks. What about the $200 billion they sent to Ukraine?
Aimed at tackling climate change and poverty in the Indo-Pacific region, raising concerns about potential for increased influence of other countries such as China, blah, 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 unnecessary deaths and suffering. Calls to increase the overseas aid spending. The Australian Council of International Development, the ACIP, has expressed deep concern over the potential consequences, including, where's me money at, man? Risk of millions of people falling into poverty and destabilization of regions. The suspension of USAID programs has also been described as disastrous and deadly by some organizations, highlighting the urgent need for alternative funding sources.
So, okay, let's just, again, talk about that sentiment and where it comes from. The organizations that were getting millions of dollars to do nothing are the ones who are saying that this could have disastrous results and won't somebody think of the children.
Yeah.
We talk about this almost every week, and like I mentioned it the other week about how California spends the most money on homelessness out of every state in America, and they've got the most homeless people in the country because they don't want to fix the problem. They want to have the problem get worse to justify more funding. All of the big managers in those companies get paid $250,000 US a year to do nothing, to make the problem worse. If you cut the funding off, the problems go away.
Yeah, it's whacked out.
Yeah, but look, we'll look into this a little bit, see what we can pull up, because I do think there might be some interesting connections there. But yeah, like, let's just pour one, grab a 40, pour one out for our fallen brothers in the project and Q&A. And as I said on Instagram during the week, I do want to formally invite Q&A and the project viewers to come and watch our show. It'll be right up your alley. It's like we agree with them on absolutely everything they talk about. So come on over, guys. We are the
I could look
program
like
for you.
Waleed.
Yeah, you basically already do look like Waleed.
We'll take it.
Yeah, little Twinkie.
Yep.
Oh, I won't say any more.
No. And on that note,
thank you very much for joining us, guys. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below, and say hi to your mum for us. Bye-bye.
See ya.